Hello everyone. We will start our today's topic. We are going to start with a very interesting topic on supply risk management. So, when we talk about risk, risk is an inseparable part of any business. So, uh, so that's why especially in current turbulent times, it is even more important to discuss about risk, investigate risk, analyze risk, right? And we have to do it in context of supply chain. Before we embark on supply risk management, we would first like to know what is risk, how we define risk, why we need to investigate risk, what is risk, and is it same as uncertainty, right? So we will first investigate these things about risk, and then we will see how risk has been evolved. Can we have a definition of risk? So then we will try to relate it with the supply chain risk. So why we want to investigate risk? As we have already said in this course, we will view the sourcing topics or related topics from the supply chain lens. So why not relate the risk in the context of supply chain? So the idea behind investigating risk by organizations, by supply chains, is that there is an overemphasis on cost reduction and efficiency. Many organizations, when they target or when they want to minimize the cost, they want to have an overall goal of like reducing the cost or being an efficient organization or efficient supply chain. They tend to have certain supply chain strategies, right, which work towards lean inventory, with the motive of cost minimization, centralizing the facilities, just in time delivery strategies. Sometimes, the strategies certainly they help in cost minimization, but at the same time, it leads to exposure of risk. For example, if you will say just in time delivery, and if some uh, uncertain event or some natural disaster happen at supplier premises, and supplier would not uh, deliver the goods under the just in time strategy, or the uh, uh, or if we have a strategy of no storage of inventory, right, or it is just in time delivery. In that case, any disaster happen at the supplier premises would lead to cascading effect, that is the disruption at the downstream supply chain entities also. So many a times, if we overemphasize on cost reduction and efficiency, we are kind of exposing that supply chain or that organization to risk. At the same time, we have seen in the past, in the late 1990s, we know the uh, including India, we have opened to global markets. Or I would rather say global supply chains, right, which has resulted in growth of global trade, right. And we all know supply chains are not a serial supply chains. They are actually intertwined network, of supply entities, which deliver, goods with lot many handshakes. So when we say global supply chain, we must understand, why companies go global, right? So there had been trend, when companies would like to go global to leverage on low labor cost, right? Or maybe they want to achieve economies of scale by shipping overseas. So this was the intention of going global. The other was to meet the competition. So to meet the competition, companies would try to explore new markets, new countries, going outside their domestic countries. And when they go there, there is a again many avenues of sourcing from local sourcing in that countries. So that leads to like change of dynamics, right? And other driving thing in global supply chain is that the companies want the best material, the best part, the best component, right? No matter from which part of this globe they can procure from. So best suppliers, even if it is located in the remotest part of the world. So these things like they definitely leads to global supply chain, right? But the downside of this can be the as we go more global, that leads to lengthy supply chain, complex network, many handshakes happen at the cross borders or at the multimodal level. So many handshakes happen, so that leads to more exposure to threats and risks. So this is the another reason why we need to investigate risk. It is debatable to say whether global supply chain are beneficial or not, or it is more risky. So we need to analyze this trade off, whether the we should accrue benefits of global supply chains and manage the risk, right, which is more exposed, because as we go global, like we have to take care of risk, right? So and when we go global, there are other things which happen. Companies are affected by world commodity price shocks, currency fluctuations, and trade policies or law changes in other countries, right? We know that these factors are given, but we also know that these are changing, they are varying, they are uncertain, right? So in this changing or volatile variables, like it is even more important to investigate risk, right? We have seen in the past, we all are debating right these days about climate change, about natural disasters which are frequently occurring at many places in the world, right? So uh, these days we cannot say that if the remotest part of globe is affected, that we are insulated from that. There is like as we are in the era of global supply chains, anything happen at any part of this globe has a cascading effect. Any catastrophic effect event happens. So the we can see the COVID-19, how it has completely stopped many cross border activities, and it has hampered many supply chain activities. So it also reminds us like when this earthquake followed by tsunami happened in Japan, it affected not only the Japanese semiconductor or electronics industry or automotive industry, but it has impacted the global industry. Many auto giants located in US or Asian countries or European countries, they are they are relying on Japan for many electronic components, right? And now we also know that many auto vehicles are actually more of a electronic component in nature. The most of the value which is like now contributed to any motor vehicle is these days electronic component. So as the dependency is growing, so any catastrophic event occurring in such countries which are the uh, leaders in manufacturing semiconductor electronics, right, or any automotive parts, right, that would have a cascading effect, and the effect was seen like in US, India, including India, where the companies, the factories were shut for weeks, and even after it revived, it couldn't revive 100% for 5 to 6 months. And it's a high time, like now the risk profiles must consider the natural disasters, right? So the many a times we will learn down the line that risk, like, we can, even if we can predict, that the some event would occur, right? It is very important, to estimate how it would impact, what would be its effect. So we cannot control, we don't have any control on natural disasters, but it is really important if we can estimate this risk, and or maybe the impact of risk, so that we are prepared of, like, how to manage this risk. So risk profiles must consider, natural disasters, and unfortunately we are seeing, many instability, political instability happenings. We are again seeing, wars happening between, cross border wars happening, so this has, like, made even more important and essential, to incorporate risk and investigate risk, right? So risk in business, risk in supply chain, right? So that leads us, to global supply chain. And when I was saying the lengthy supply chain, we can see here, if we, for example, this television or LED television, this is like, this is actually a need of, like, every home, right? Even if we will say, we as an end consumer, we need this television. Now you can see that, to assemble this thing, the companies, this is assembled by procuring, the products across the world, right? Now you can see that, semiconductors from coming from other countries, circuit board all together from other places, like, and displays, capacitors, plastic car casings, so all are coming from different countries, right? So you can see that, when they start from those countries, they cut across multimodal road, ship, air, and they have to be, like, transported, delivered, to the assembly point. So lot many handshakes happen, right? So you can see that, visualize that, so many handshakes happen, that creates a lengthy supply chain, very complex supply chain, and so is the exposure to variety of risks. So we will discuss many categories of risks also, but this is right now just to sensitize all of us, that why risk is important, and why it is important in context of supply chain, right? Little bit about what is risk, right? Risk and uncertainty. Many a times, like, we use risk and uncertainty interchangeably. It is important to know the differences between risk and uncertainty. We all know that businesses are exposed to uncertainty. They are prone to uncertain event, right? Demand may fluctuate, demand may go up, and tomorrow demand would go down. Every day we see, the dynamics in the share market, right? So this is, like, this is an inseparable risk or uncertainty. They are inseparable part of any business. But when we talk about uncertainty, thanks to Professor Frank Knight, from University of Chicago, he's the economist, he has given this perception about uncertainty, that this is unmeasurable future events, okay? So which we cannot even visualize, which we cannot foresee, that is, those are uncertain event, right? But, when if we can have measurable uncertainty, right, means we are aware that, or we can predict that this event might happen, right? So that is called risk. So it is more of a measurable uncertainty, which is called risks. Or we can say that, when we are more concerned about undesirable consequences of uncertainty, or we can say, when we are more concerned about the odds which can happen because of any uncertain event or undesirable event, we call it risk, right? So when odds are known, we can say risk. When odds are not known, we can say uncertain, right? So that's why, if we want to manage undesirable consequences, we know this is a measurable uncertainty, then can we come up with some kind of frameworks and management, so and decisions which needs risk analysis, control, assessment and mitigation. So this is about risk and uncertainty. Now we will define what is risk, right, and why to manage risk. So what is risk? Now we can say that the risk is the likelihood of occurrence of undesirable event or uncertainty. Now why we are saying uncertainty? We are actually taking this definition, measurable uncertainty. That means, we know that there is a chance that this event would occur, the likelihood of an event of occurrence. For example, there can be increase in supply cost, there can be a risk, like there is a probability that the supply cost would increase. This might be due to the volatility of raw material, the commodity prices, right. There can be decrease in supply capability with the new things happening. Maybe the technology and digitalization, many times suppliers would not be able to cope up with innovativeness. This can decrease in supply capability. The thing is that the likelihood of the event, like what is happening today, it might be a very different scenario tomorrow, right. So discrepancy between forecast and actual demand, that leads to demand risk. So there can be a likelihood of occurrence of event, right. So when we define risk, we are concerned about the likelihood, the probability, the chance of an event, and its implication, its impact, how negative implications of the event or consequences of events or the impact of event, right. For example, if an event has occurred, how it would impact. It might impact in the form of disrupting flow of information, flow of products, flow of resources, or it can result in financial losses, or it can result in complete close down. As I was giving example of, like earthquake in Japan, that resulted in closing down of facilities for number of weeks, like maybe from 4 to 5 weeks, many facilities were not able to function at all. It was a complete close down. So this is very important. There are two very important indicators of risk. When we define risk, we are interested in the chance and the impact, So one should remember the likelihood of occurrence of any event and how it is impacting. So this is how we define the risk, right. So let's see few examples, like when we say that how we define risk in this context of few example. So in 2006, due to fire hazard, a computer manufacturer recalled 4 million laptops computer due to flaw in the batteries, right. So fire hazard happened because there was a flaw in batteries, right. So what is the event occurred here? It is a fire, right. So this is the uncertain event, right, likelihood of event, the probability of occurrence of event, we can say that this is a fire, this is a risky event which has occurred. Now how it has impacted? It is the impact in the form of recall of 4 million laptops, right. Similar thing, another incidence of fire occurred. You can say that a mobile handset assemblers, they lost around 400 million euros. Okay, so now you can see that even if, like in first two examples, like what we can observe, right, the event, we can, if we want to define risk, fire hazard, caught on fire, they are the likelihood of, or it is the chance of event or event which has occurred, right. But now you see what is the impact, right. So one observation we can quickly see here is that even if uh, the event is same, right, that is fire, the loss, the impact can be very different. For example, in second case, they have actually lost 400 million euros, right? In Because you just see that an assembler has lost 400 million euros because the fire happened at the supplier. Now you see that it also shows the cascading effect of any catastrophic event or any risky event which has occurred, right? Now third example, we can say that British automotive giant laid off 1400 workers after their supplier became insolvent. So even suppliers can go bankrupt. Now you see that when this happen, it can actually impact the whole supply chain, or to the or any supply chain entity. Now you see here the impact is laying off 1400 workers. Now we see that impact. Similar examples you can see here, when banana plantation were destroyed. Now we see that it has become because of the climate change. Every month we see around the world, one or two places gets affected by this change in climate, the flood situation, the cyclones, and it impacts on the agriculture produce, the crop damage, right? So this is these are the events which are impacting this one, right? And COVID-19 impact, we all have observed, the GDP growth was on the negative side. So this is to connect with the definition of risk, likelihood, chance, and impact. But also these examples have given us some thought process on how this impact can vary. It can vary in different terms. For example, we do see monetary losses, we do see human resource being laid off, right? We have seen impact on the loss of crops or impact on the GDP growth. So we can see that the impact can be varying. So it is very important to investigate risk in general, and now we will also see how it is prevalent in supply chain and with more precise in the supply management, right? Down the line we will learn all that. So it's a very interesting thing. We can see that how risk has been evolved. um, uh, Actually, this is the risk has been taken from the Greek word risikon, where the long back, some 1,000 years ago, when some merchants would own a ship, where they will really feel proud of owning a ship, big businessman, where they can use the ship for trading, and for maybe some spices trading across the sea, right? So there uh, this evolution of risk is interesting because owning a ship was a prestigious thing because it was very very costly, right? And they could afford only a ship because it was really costly, right? So that ship, the ownership is one part, but it was sailing through ship was a very risky affair, right? They had to cope up with the risk of storms, the piracy, or diseases, when they move from one place to another, right? So this is definitely an analogy to uncertain events, or various risky scenarios, right? But why this is important, how it can link with the supply risk is that, so first of all, this shows the undesirable impact, which is means we want to focus on undesirable impact of risk. And another thing, in those time when the merchants would own a ship, it is very similar to when we are sourcing from single source, or when we have only source, so those era merchants were really worried about losing their only ship, because of all this risky event. That's what when they coined the word risicon, right? It is really from that thing we have evolved, like, this is only ship is analogous to vulnerable business, right? Or when businesses are relying only on single source. So this is just to connect with, like, a little bit of historical importance of the risk and how this word evolved, right? So that time, the risk would be perceived in the form of fear, loss or devaluation of an important asset, or decrease in the performance of business, right? So I think the forms might have changed, right? But you see, the loss, the devaluation, the decrease in performance, that is still there, when we all face a risky event, right? We will quickly go to supply chain risk, so thanks to this authors, they have given interesting definitions on supply chain risk: variation in the distribution of possible supply chain outcomes, their likelihood, subjective values. So Sidson has given supply risk, definition relates to occurrence of an incident with the inability of the affected companies to cope with the consequences, right? So the idea is that, when a supply chain is defined as, the flow of information, material or product or resources and finance, when all those flows are disrupted due to any event, so how do we manage those, how do we address those, right? So all this is comes under supply chain risk, right? So this is about, supply chain risk, defining supply chain risk, but it is actually, like, an exhaustive exercise, to analyze, identify supply chain risks, right? But so far we have actually defined the risk in general. We have seen how it historically, how we can link, the risk evolution, right? And we have also seen the definition of risk in general, right, which is one can say measurable uncertainty, right? And we have also learned why it is very important to investigate risk, predominantly from supply chain perspective. So when as we have said about risk, it is very important to have some framework, right? If we want to analyze risk, if we want to study risk, we really need some framework, to address this risk, right? So we should have some framework in general, and then we will try to apply in the context of supply management. So the best way out to manage the risk is to adopt this three-stage process: risk identification, risk assessment and risk mitigation, right? So when we say risk identification, we need to first devise some scheme so that we can categorize the risk, right? So categorization of risk and the basis to categorize will help us to first of all have an exhaustive list of risk, exhaustive categories of risk. Like, we should not like ignore any risk, right? So we should incorporate all the risks. And, when we will categorize the risk, some categorization scheme will help us to uh, place similar risk under same category or under one category, right? So that, either managing that risk or either their impact is same, some scheme will help us, to assess and manage the risk in the subsequent phases. Now, when we talk about assess, right? So risk assessment, it is very important to see, like, to assess the risk, right? Like, when I have already identified the risk, right, but what would be its impact, or can I say that, this risk is low, medium, high, right? Somehow I want to assess the risk, right? This can be done in a qualitative manner or it can be done in quantitative manner. So this is the risk assessment. And once I would be able to identify risk, I would be able to assess the risk, then only I can manage the risk in terms of mitigating it, right? So when we talk about risk mitigation, there are many strategies to mitigate the risk, which are like, from one end it is risk avoidance, and to another end it is developing strategic and tactical strategies, like to sense the risk on time, to be prepared, to address the risk, to be proactive, in devising strategic mitigation plan. So, but this risk management framework would really help us, to analyze the risk in a structured manner. Okay, so this is we will adopt this risk management framework to address the supply risk.